Welcome to ARFID What You Eat, a channel where we deal with some of the issues that somebody with avoidant restrictive food intake disorder deals with on a daily basis. My name is Chris. Today we're going to be trying out a food, and that food is a Royal Gala apple. Royal Gala apple, we're eating apples, it's a royal apple. As a general overview of apples, I've absolutely had apples before in my life, but I can say that I've never really been a fan of apples. They're not really for me. I mean, they're okay. It's actually been quite a while since I've had an apple too, to be honest, so this should be an interesting day. I do enjoy the red coloration here, but the color seems to change quite a bit through the apple. It becomes yellow at certain areas. Like so many fruits, it seems to have a touch of bruising. It's got some slices along the side even. And it seems to be covered in these tiny little brown dots, which is kind of strange. Yeah, as you can see here, it's yellow in certain sections. There's a little bit of bruising right there. It's red in other sections. There's little slices along the side here that I'm not into, little indentations, not very cool. And they always have this little part in the bottom where it seems to be some sort of cavity that I don't know if there's something in there or not, but it looks kind of weird. It's got these little green leaves on it, kind of gross, but I think that connects to the core of the apple anyways, and we're not going to eat the core, so we're just going to avoid that whole part. Right off the bat, if you have ARFID, this is one of the challenges that something like an apple is going to present you with, is that it's not consistent. It's not consistent color-wise. It's not even consistent apple to apple. One of the things that people with ARFID often look for the most in foods is a just baseline consistency across a meal every single time. For example, if I eat a white piece of bread, each white piece of bread I eat is basically going to be the same every time. Whereas this apple, the redness and the yellow is going to be different every single time. The bruising is going to be different every single time. There's just no way to get a perfect apple. I need that predictability. That's a problem for me. Doesn't smell like much of anything on the outside, so let's chop it open. I do like that the color is pretty much consistent right through as far as the flesh of the apple here goes. That's pretty good. There's obviously that gross looking cavity in the middle there with what appears to be a seed next to it. That's always gross, but again, with apples, you're not eating the core, so I should be able to avoid that entirely, but it's gross to look at. The texture is fine on the inside here. It's a touch slimy, but very, very minimally so. Enough that I can probably look past that. As with all apples, the moment you cut it open too, it's going to start bruising right away, so that's not cool for me. I like the idea of just being able to have a food sit there for 10 minutes and look the same 10 minutes later. It's not as good a smell as I remember it, gotta say. It's a lot plantier than I recall. It actually makes me think of like preparing a jack-o'-lantern for Halloween when you're gutting out a pumpkin. It smells more like that than I expected it to. Texture's not too bad on the inside. The outside also has something of a waxy texture to it, but at the same time, I don't know if that's part of pesticides and the keeping it so it will store better type things that people do with apples and a lot of other fruits and vegetables. I have no doubt that this apple is harmless, and I have washed it, I promise you that much, but it is still kind of just a gross thought to me. And all it takes for someone with ARFID is the thought to get into your head. It doesn't even have to be true. Once the thought's there, it's very hard for me to look past that when I'm eating something. Most people, I believe, do eat the skin with an apple, so we're going to be trying that today as well. That makes me a little nervous because I don't really like the skins on a lot of foods like this. It'd be easier just to peel it right off, but we're going to try that for the purpose of this channel. Royal Gala apple. First bite. Not too bad. Pretty harmless, I have to say. I really don't like that you can feel the difference in texture between the skin and the flesh of the apple. You have one texture on the other hand, the flesh, that's going in pretty easy, chews easily, but then as you're chewing, you have this skin kind of weaving in and out of your teeth, and I can feel that difference in my mouth, and I don't like that. It was decently juicy when I took a bite, but not overpoweringly so. It helps that the flavor is decent, but it's also not that strong. Like, it's just a nice fruity taste, but not a punch in the face. Not too sweet, but not too tart. So the flavor, really not too bad here. As I'm eating this, it is browning, so I know I'm on something of a stop clock here with this thing. I have to eat it rather quickly. Yeah, now as I'm eating it, it's getting browner, and the second bite isn't looking as appealing. I'm gonna bite it from the other side because I'm afraid if I bite in from the same spot, I might accidentally hit the middle section or something, and I'm kind of grossed out by that part. I don't want to eat that. Yeah, not too bad. Again, the texture's not too bad for the flesh, but the skin is really gross. And it's like hanging out in my mouth right now. The flesh already went, but the skin's not going with it. Now I'm just chewing on the skin. I hate having to chew something for any longer than a couple of bites. The longer it's in my mouth, the grosser it gets to me. But this is good. This is something I need to kind of get used to here. Just sit with it, live with it for a little bit. The skin doesn't taste as good. The flesh is pretty decent flavor-wise, actually. But the skin, yeah, too much. Not too sweet, not too tart, not too sour. One more bite to bring this home. Really not too bad. It's been a while since I've had an apple, but I think it won't be as long in the future because I gotta say, apple, or Royal Gala apple, I should say, not too bad. I could certainly eat this. I wouldn't go so far as to call this a safe food or anything like that. It still has all the hallmark issues that I would have with a food that I would consider unsafe, such as the inconsistency, the bruising through it, a gross middle section that I really don't like seeing. Overall thoughts. Appearance is a little too inconsistent for my liking. Texture was fine. Surprisingly, the smell isn't that good. It doesn't really match the taste. Not a very sweet smell, just a kind of a planty smell. Really wasn't a bad taste. It was pretty good. And the mouthfeel really wasn't that bad either. It wasn't great, but it wasn't as veiny as I expected it to be, except for the skin. I really didn't like the way the skin tasted. I might recommend this to someone who has ARFID to try and maybe even start without the skin. Otherwise, you'll be dealing with two separate textures at the same time in your mouth, and multiple textures can be a real problem for mouthfeel. But yeah, that's the Royal Gala apple, our first apple. Thanks for joining me today and basking in the presence of royalty with me. This is uARFID What You Eat. My name's Chris, and thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you had a good time, and hopefully we'll catch you back again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.